Are the foods you're eating leaving you feeling bloated and lethargic? Do you have bouts of anxiety? How can you live a confident life when you're feeling this way? If any of those sound like you, you're going to want to tune into today's episode of Coffee and Confidence, where we're going to talk about, listening to your body and tuning in, and that you can start feeling your best and most confident self. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest to you. But first, my name is Kelly Carrigan, and I'm your host today. My business is Empower Me Coaching, and I'm helping people pleasers worldwide calm the chaos in their life so that they can live life on their terms. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've been in your shoes. I've done the work. I've put in the time, and now I'm sharing my knowledge and my passion to help others live life on their terms. So thank you, and welcome to the Coffee and Confidence Show, episode number 5. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest to you. Today's guest is Betty Ann Tucker. She's a Harmonious Vegan, and she is helping people transition into a vegan lifestyle. So welcome, Betty. Thank you so much for being here. Please share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, Kelly. So I wanted to come on today we have a visitor. Sorry, guys. Yeah, she's just waking up. Yeah. So as you can see, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 2, actually. And I own the business, as Kelly said, Harmoniously Vegan. And I help busy moms transition to a more holistic and balanced vegan lifestyle by giving them the tools and the resources necessary to make the transition easy and sustainable. And so that includes recipes, that includes, I talk about lifestyle, holistic health and wellness. I even started talking a little bit about, beauty and skincare and all that stuff. So, and how you can bring the vegan aspect of that into your lifestyle. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So not just focusing on food, but focusing on more of like the holistic living in all areas. Like you said, beauty. I've seen even you do something on style, right?
Yes.
Right? Like clothing. So that's amazing. Yeah, yes, that's great.
I did a live video a couple weeks back with a local style consult we talked about how you can transition your wardrobe into a vegan wardrobe.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. This is the Coffee and Confidence Show. So the next we're going to do the little clip of what is in your cup. So that's great that you're on this week. It's kind of coincidental, really. I've been, I really need to listen to my body. And since Monday, I've committed myself to like a 14-day cleanse, rebalance. So you know what? This morning in my cup, I have tea. I don't have coffee. So, for the next 2 weeks, I'm off coffee, I'm off dairy, I'm off soy, sugar, all the fun stuff, right? I need to start listening to my body and eliminate, the foods that doesn't serve me well. So what's in your cup, Betty?
Today I actually do have coffee. And it's just a brew from my Tassimo with some soy milk in one of my favorite cups that my best friend gave me.
Awesome.
So I don't drink too much coffee, but today was a coffee day.
What does the quote say on your mug?
It says, "The best friendships are built on inappropriateness and sarcasm." I apologize for my little one. She's just waking up.
That's great. So if we have any viewers online right now, or even if you're catching the replay, please, let us know that you're here or that you've tuned in. Hit the like button. Send us your comments. Send us your questions. Have you heard about like a plant-based diet, vegan lifestyle? Are you currently vegan or eat a lot of plant-based meals? I know myself personally, I'm not vegan. However, I do eat a lot of plant-based meals because I know that incorporating fruits and vegetables and whole foods into my diet is going to make me feel better. So I just saw that Tabitha Foster's tuning in. Good morning, ladies. Here, I will show Tabitha's comment. Good morning, Tabitha. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tabitha's tuning in from the East Coast. So welcome, welcome. If you have any questions, comments, keep on leaving them. So there you go. So, you know, I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and it seems like the more we learn about our food and our nutrition, our health, that sort of thing, it can become really complicated, right? Because there's so much information out there. And, you know, like myself, other people are having symptoms, right? There's symptoms out there that they may not even be aware of, right? So what are some of the symptoms that people might feel if they're eating the wrong foods for their body?
So like you said, Kelly, it can get extremely complicated with all the information that's out there. And I know firsthand because, I mean, I did study fitness and nutrition for 2 years. And there's a lot of information out there. And a lot of it is... there's a lot to go through, a lot to comb through. A lot of it is geared toward one side or the other, especially on Facebook or the internet. But some of the things that you can expect to see when you're not eating the right foods, some of the common ones would be feeling tired, having difficulty concentrating or focusing. You can notice issues with your skin. I myself suffered from acne. Your sleep, of course, your energy when you're out and about or exercising. So there, it can even affect anxiety and depression if you suffer with those as well. So it can affect a multitude of different things just by what you're eating.
Yeah, I know. I feel compelled to share this story of my son, his first year university. He was staying, you know, in residence and, you know, had the meal plan, so eating cafeteria food. And oh my goodness, like he would call me with anxieties, like he knew what to do, but it's like he couldn't get out of his own way to do what he needed to do.
Yeah.
He was eating, you know, the wrong foods and a lot of like processed food, you know, a lot of chemically treated food. And then the following year, he transitioned to vegan and totally different kid, like total different experience. Because the second year he got out on his own.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so anyways, he got out on his own and was able to cook for himself, and he got to choose his own food, and then he felt much, much better.
It really...
Mama just gotta take care of what Mama needs to take care of.
It's okay.
Welcome to Life of Mompreneur.
I was so good before we set up too. Everybody was all settled in and ready to go, and then of course. Benjamin, can you get your daddy, please? So yes, as you were saying, Ben, don't scream, please. As you were saying, you know, even the foods that you can find every day in like the cafeteria at school can have an effect, like wheat, gluten, dairy, meat, all of that stuff. Can you take her, please? I'm on a call. No!
Come on. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So can you just say that again?
Yeah, I was just sharing the story about my son in his first year university. So like one thing that he said, he's like, you know, I got the salad. He's like, and then I took the leftover salad. He said, and 3 weeks later, it was still fresh in my fridge. He's like, there's something wrong with that, right?
Right.
So, you know, when you have the choice to choose your own foods, then like as opposed to eating from a cafeteria. And you were just talking about, you know, a lot of the foods are saturated with like gluten, things like this, right? That's
Yeah.
where you were going with that.
Yes. Yeah. So there are many like things that are added to our foods. The pesticides even have an impact on because they're toxins. So, you know, what we're consuming will have an effect on how we're feeling and how how our bodies are functioning. So that's a big thing. And it's being conscious about, you know, where we're getting our foods and what we're putting into our bodies that will really affect how we're feeling and what we're putting out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I was kind of leading into my next question, right? What are some of the common food allergens that people have are allergic to or have sensitivities? Because there's a difference between being allergic and being sensitive.
Right.
So can you share a little bit more about that?
So of course, you know, a lot of people know there's like the common peanut and shellfish and allergy. Some of the other ones that may not be as common are wheat and gluten. And also dairy. Dairy is a big one. A lot of people will think, well, I'm lactose intolerant. It's because I'm not designed to drink dairy or there's something wrong with me. But the funny thing is that biologically how it works is that, you know, when we're infants, our bodies will produce what's called an enzyme called lactase, and it helps us digest lactose from our mother's milk.
Right.
And after we leave infancy, our body naturally stops producing that that enzyme lactase. So we're not able to digest lactose. And some people, of course, will still continue to produce it because of the consumption of dairy. But generally, most of the time, that's why 75% of the population is lactose intolerant, is because they've stopped producing that, which is what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And so it has a great effect on how you're feeling, because it can cause things like inflammation in the body, excess production of mucus in the ears, nose, and throat. It can cause things like acne. Because of the growth hormones, it can cause things like obesity. So there's it has a big effect on how you're feeling and living your life to the, your full potential.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know, like, even in one of my introductory questions here this morning, I was like, you know, how can you live confidently when you feel like that, right? Because when we're feeling less, you know, if something is not quite right within our bodies, you know, if we're feeling lethargic, if we're feeling tired, it really prevents us from being our best self. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. I personally have felt that way in the past with dairy consumption, but with also gluten or processed sugars, and of course meat, because I'm a vegan. So I've noticed a big improvement in how my body feels and how I feel mentally with just cutting those things out of my diet.
Uh-huh. It's interesting that you say that. Like, even my mom, so we grew up on the East Coast, like Northern lifestyle. So, you know, even our background is like Native history. So, you know, moose hunting, for instance, was perhaps like really big in our family. And like my mom, for instance, she's like, oh, I love moose meat and I could eat it like breakfast, dinner, and supper. And you know, she really enjoyed it. However, about a year ago, probably a little over a year ago, she started transitioning her diet where she was saying, she's like, you know, I'm about 95% vegan. Well, her energy level skyrocketed. My mom is 67. Like, this woman can easily walk anywhere from like 15 to 25 kilometers a day. By making that transition, and she had lost 40 pounds, she's feeling vibrant and energetic, and it's just amazing to see the transition in somebody when they change what they're eating. And it really, like, her confidence went up, her energy levels went up. Like, I remember before I'd go and visit her and she'd be like, yeah, like in front of the computer, just like scrolling, uninspired. And it's just amazing. So
I've
seen it firsthand.
And I've personally gone through that as well. Like, I mean, I didn't grow up as a vegan. In fact, my father is a very much traditional man where, he's very meat and potatoes on the plate and then a little bit of vegetables, right? And so that's how I grew up. And it's not that I didn't like the taste of meat and dairy. It's just that over the years of my study through fitness and nutrition, and really listening to my body and dealing with some health issues myself, I did more research, and I realized that some of the foods I was consuming was what was causing some of the issues I was having, and really just transitioning from that traditional American diet to a vegan lifestyle. I've noticed a huge increase in my concentration, in my energy, in my just the way that my day-to-day living. It's a tremendous transition.
Mm-hmm. So just explain to the viewers today, what were some of the symptoms that you were having that steered you towards making the transition into a vegan lifestyle?
So personally, I suffer from anxiety and depression. And that was a huge motivator for me to look into more holistic routes, because my doctor basically had said to me, it's either medication or you can try some different routes to see how this will improve. And so the more research I did, it led me to the holistic side of it, where you can, like, food is our medicine. And so what we're consuming can heal us or it can hurt us. Mm-hmm. And so looking into, the types of foods, how it affects our mental state, like vitamin D, for instance, omega-3s, magnesium, those are some things that can have a big effect on how we're feeling mentally. And so incorporating more of that into my diet and eliminating things like dairy, I started to notice a big increase in my energy and in my focus and just overall how I was feeling. And of course, if anybody follows me on Facebook, Harmoniously Vegan, I just posted a post the other day about my skin, and that was a big source of my anxiety and depression for a long time. After I had my son, I suffered from severe acne. And so I didn't feel like I could live confidently because I was always so anxious about my skin and how I looked. And just transitioning to a vegan lifestyle and eliminating, the meat and the dairy, it actually significantly improved my skin, whereas I barely have any acne at all, and it's mainly just minimal scarring now. And so that's a huge relief for me, and I'm not as anxious about, when I'm talking to other people and how I look and those sorts of things. So yeah, that was me personally.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And then as you're sharing your story, I'm thinking of, someone in our family. I don't want to call them out because maybe they wouldn't appreciate being called out. However, there's somebody in our family that has severe acne from teenage years. And in that family, it's like milk, like a big glass of milk with every meal.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That was me growing up. I would drink glasses of milk a day. Sometimes I would drink liters of chocolate milk growing up. And the funny thing is, I never really had much acne until after my son, when the hormones were different. And the hormones with the dairy and then the hormones with the pregnancy, it really affected how my skin reacted and how my body reacted to what I was consuming. And I like to say that after my pregnancy is when I really and I became a mother, is when I really became attuned to my body and how I was feeling, because you kind of have to when you're a mom, especially after you just had a baby.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So why do you think people choose to still eat foods that they know is not the best for them?
Right.
So like somebody who knows that they have, like, say, a gluten sensitivity, for instance,
mm-hmm.
It's like, why do they keep doing it anyways?
So for me personally, I know that when I was suffering from my depression, even though the foods that I was eating later would make me feel worse, in the moment they were a source of comfort. Mm-hmm. And in the back of our minds, I shouldn't be eating this because I know that later on it's going to make me feel worse, or it's not going to help me get to my goal and make me feel my best. At this moment in time, I'm craving a source of comfort, and this is providing that comfort. So there's that. And then there's also the sense of convenience and tradition or culture.
Right.
And that's a big thing with meat and dairy, especially, is that it's been it's been conditioned to be such a big part of our lifestyles that it's not really in the forefront of our mind to think, well, I shouldn't be eating this because I need this to nourish my body and to survive. And that's the common mindset of people who eat meat and dairy. And I mean, I thought the same way. So it's not that, we're bad, or that it's just that we don't have enough information, I think.
I know for myself, being a recovering people pleaser, like one of my driving core needs is connection, right? Mm-hmm. So therefore, if I'm at a friend's house and they just made like a lovely batch of muffins, because I know that wheat doesn't do me well, like wheat gluten actually gives me anxiety, that, rather than say, no, I can't eat it, I would say, sure, because that connection is really important to me. However, now that I've identified that, right, I can, step into my personal power and, easier say, no, thank you, without feeling guilty. And there's other ways to connect. We don't always have to connect, for me anyways, we don't always have to connect through food. And I know there's a couple of clients that I've worked with. It's just like, one of their goals is to lose weight. Well, there has to be some sacrifice, right? There has to be some, short-term pain for long-term gain. But yet they didn't want to give up going out to dinners with their friends and things like that, because it's that source of connection, right? And we tend to connect through food. Yes.
It's a big part of our culture to connect that way. And it's funny that you say that, because in the beginning of my transition, that was kind of one of the things that I was having difficulty with. At home, I was vegan all the way. And then when we went out and we would visit, say, my in-laws, we would go every Sunday for dinner. Of course, they're not vegan. So at the time, they were still making the traditional meals that we would normally eat. And at dinner, I wouldn't have any meat. I would just have some vegetables and stuff like that. But then when it came to like dessert and, like the finger foods and stuff like that, and chit-chatting at the table, that was a very difficult thing for me to kind of let go, because like you said, it was that connection. We would sit down after dinner, we would have a tea or coffee, and we would have our little finger treats. And so, yeah, that was, it was really connecting with my body and how it made me feel afterwards. But it was also connecting with the reason why it was important to me to transition to a vegan lifestyle. And one of the main reasons it was important was because of my health. Of course, there were other reasons, but my health was the primary thing. And I knew that eating these foods did not make me feel my best. So
Right. So sometimes we self-sacrifice what we believe to please others when it's not serving ourselves any justice. Yeah. That's beautiful. So what tips do you have for our viewers today so that they can listen to their body?
So one of the things I like to tell my clients, or the people that I work with, is, it's definitely a difficult topic to address because food is literally our lifeline. And changing the way that we eat can be one of the most difficult things, because it is ingrained in everything, and because it's become such a habit in the way that we eat. And it can feel like a huge task changing that. I let them look at it in a different perspective, and I encourage them to not think of it as something so big, and just think of it as taking step by step. And one of the first things I say is, when you're sitting down to eat your meal at the dinner table, just eat a little slowly, a little more slowly than you naturally would. But think of how the food that you're eating is nourishing your body. And if it is, then you'll feel better. And if it isn't, then you won't feel as good afterwards. Like when you're eating a meal afterwards, you should feel energized, and you should feel good, not lethargic and down and ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like that's your source of energy. So.
Right. And bloated is another big one.
Mm-hmm. I suffered from extreme bloating from the processed foods and the gluten and stuff like that prior to transitioning. And the more whole foods that I incorporated into my diet, I noticed that the less bloating that I had. And so that was a big thing for me because I'm a very active person, and going out after dinner I didn't want to because I was just so bloated and full and weighed down. So that's one of the first things I tell my clients is when you're eating, you're sitting down to eat, just pay attention to what you're eating and how it's making your body feel afterwards.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you want to live a confident life, choosing what you put in your body is really, really important to living a confident life. I was reading an article just a couple of days ago about the foods that we choose. The foods that we choose really say a lot about our self-esteem because it's a relationship, right? So the relationship that we have with food is also contends to the relationship that we have, with others. So it's really important to start listening to your body and tune in and listen to the messages that your body has for you. That's amazing advice for everybody today. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And it's something very easy that you can implement right now when you're sitting down to have, breakfast or lunch or dinner. You can just sit down and see how those different foods on your plate will make you feel afterwards, not just in your body, but in your mind as well. Because like I said, some of the foods I was eating was causing me anxiety and making my depression worse. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So for all the viewers that are on, today or catching the replay, Betty, how can they get in touch with you? How can they stay in touch with what you've got going on?
So they can follow me on Instagram at harmoniously.vegan or Facebook, Harmoniously Vegan. I do have an upcoming 30-day vegan shift program for August. And essentially what that is if they're interested more in transitioning to a vegan lifestyle or even just incorporating more plant-based foods and learning about the lifestyle, this is essentially a complete guide to help them learn more about the vegan lifestyle and how they can implement more plant-based foods. And we talk about meal plans, family-friendly recipes. We have daily lessons to help you learn as much as you can within the 30 days. And you also have access to a private Facebook group, so you get support and all of that. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Well, that's great. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Just that if you're looking for support, not necessarily even just into a vegan lifestyle, but looking for support in how you're feeling and what you're eating, I'm always available to talk, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be about transitioning to a vegan lifestyle.
Oh, well, that's great. So everybody that's on, I suggest that you reach out to Betty Ann Tucker and send her a friend request, get connected with her page because she's got some great knowledge. She's got great experience. So I know that she's been there, done that. So I'm sure she can relate to anything that you guys have going on. As for myself, if you guys have really enjoyed the Coffee and Confidence show today, I welcome you to join my private Facebook group, which is called Coffee and Confidence. So there I share daily tips, inspiration, I do training videos, and we have a fabulous community going on right now. After the show, I will leave the link in the comments. So if anybody's interested in joining that group, and Betty, I welcome you to do the same, right? So once we're done, leave all the links to your group, the 30 days transition, how people can get a hold of you. Leave the links in the comments.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that wraps up episode 5. Next week on episode 6, I will be interviewing a spiritual mentor, and her name is Steph Burke. And we're going to be talking about how to live an authentic life. So how to be your authentic self. So if that topic is of interest to you, please tune in next Thursday, the 19th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Facebook. So thanks again. Thank you so much, Betty, for being here and sharing your knowledge. I know that the viewers got a lot of value in what you had to share today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, bye, guys. We're going to tune out. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.